So good to see you, Joff.
Good to see you again.
I loved our conversation, and I think there's so much more we could unpack. One of the things that I've seen, even in terms of the clients that I've been working with, is that when there's a hiccup or something happens, then everything stops. So have you seen, like, if someone gets injured, then they have to kind of start from scratch in terms of their movement and in terms of their workouts once they're fully well again?
It's the first thing that goes if someone's experiencing pain. Like the
Yeah.
last thing they want to do is go and exercise, particularly if they've done the injury exercising as well, which can be, quite common if they're overdoing it with the exercise. So yeah, we see that a lot. And, the natural thing will be that people will go and see a physio or go to the hospital and get treatment. And then they'll usually wait for the go ahead from a physio to obviously get back into some exercise and maybe do some rehab as well. But what I'm finding now, working with physios that are close to us and a lot of other physios who send people over to us, is that they're very encouraging of getting people back into exercise as quickly as possible. Obviously scaling and modifying and making adjustments and making sure that they're doing the things that are going to help them get better, and obviously maybe stop the things that are going to provoke the injury. But we're seeing more and more that there's this encouragement of like, hey, you don't need to stop exercising. I think if there is people out, don't get me wrong, if there's a acute pain, you've broken your leg or something like that, you need to take rest from the gym. But if there's some chronic pain happening, or there's some pain that just doesn't feel comfortable, you can still exercise. There's still stuff that you can do. And that's a lot of what I do as a coach and our team do in the classes as well, that we want to be there to welcome you in, scale and modify the exercises to make you feel comfortable. And I think over my years of coaching, one of the biggest things that I can offer you if you are nervous about getting back into the gym from injury is just patience. And being someone who has had quite a bad hip injury for a long time now and been on the other side of that, seeing physios and having surgery and trying to get back into training, I know how it feels going in and maybe they've told you to do an exercise, but it doesn't quite feel right. And not having the confidence to speak up and say, no, that didn't feel right, and just going on with it. And that can sometimes lead to more injury or not getting better. So, having the patience and having the, being in a position that if someone says that doesn't feel right, being open to changing things and modifying things. So I think that's been one of the biggest factors.
For sure. I think that's so great, where you're welcoming that medical advice and looking at the recommendations and working with the physios. That would probably give your clients even more confidence, to show up consistently. I know for me, when I had chronic lower back pain, it was stress-induced, but it was also because I neglected strength, and so once I started lifting weights, once I started actually strengthening my back, those aches and pains went away. So it really does make such a difference when we're able to really understand what movements to use and when. I guess on the other side of that, is there like a limit, or is there a danger of too much? You see people who are going for one marathon after the other. Do you feel like, yeah, okay, as long as you have the energy, keep going? Or is there a caution we should be aware of?
I think there can be the perfect storm sometimes of someone who's highly driven, highly motivated, and then maybe getting a little bit of an itch for the fitness scene. And I see it time and time again, maybe someone who's not trained too much, and then they start to enjoy the environment, and next thing they've signed up for a half marathon, then it's a marathon, then they're doing ultra marathons. I see it, like you see it a lot.
Yes.
Is it dangerous? Listen, as long as they're not letting it rule their life and they're keeping on top of job, family, those types of things, which obviously that's down to them. From an injury perspective, what I do tend to see a lot is a lot of men in particular who have kind of biased the more endurance sports, because I think one of the main reasons is that it's very accessible. Things like running, cycling, triathlon, swimming, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
it's easy to just get into the mindset of, right, I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to grab my kit, or I'm going to put my trainers on and go for a run. And that's probably feels like a little bit of an escapism as well. And a huge sense of accomplishment. Like if you woke up in the morning before work, you've run 10 kilometers, and then that feeling just gets more and more. And then maybe it's tied to, your Strava, getting the kudos and that type of stuff. So I think it just needs to be a consideration that endurance sports, that type of training is great for your health to a certain point, I would say. But then it can be a little bit detrimental, especially if you're starting to hike the volume up and start looking at ultra marathons and crazy challenges around the world, which is great. I've been guilty of that myself. But I think definitely looking at it more holistically and thinking, yes, you maybe don't enjoy strength training, but that is still going to be a staple of your training. Any coach will tell you that, and even any endurance coach will tell you, you need to be doing strength training.
Yes.
But what tends to happen is that, I'll do a couple of strength training sessions, but then when it comes to it, they'll be like, I'll just hop on the bike.
That's so interesting, because literally I've been coaching the CEO, and he will be, he'll take the calls from all different countries. And I'm like, oh, have you got a meeting in Vietnam? Like, and no, I'm here for an Ironman. I'm here for a triathlon. And so I definitely see that in a personality type too, where they feel like they're striving and they're just pushing and pushing, and honestly, a lot of my coaching then talks about moderation, right? When do we reel it in a little bit? And in terms of that identification, if I'm only identifying myself with my achievements, the moment I've achieved something, what do? I'll just set the bar higher and higher and higher. So you're always keeping yourself in that sympathetic nervous system state, right? And so what that does is it actually takes away from being able to be present or to even enjoy the simple things in life, right? Because you're always chasing that grand big prize or that accolade, that then the small things in life become, or the everyday things in life become so meaningless. And so, whether I'm talking to a CEO or even, a team building exercise, it's also how we can start to shift from being the one who's dictating, okay, I have to go, I have to drive. My mind is pulling my body. And when can I start listening to the cues of my body, right? And so when we can do that with ourselves, then we're so much more engaged to be present and listen to each other in a room or create like a harmony in our teamwork. So it's so interesting that I always say that it's the ego driving, okay, the next endurance, the further mileage, I'm going to keep going. But as you said, that's not what the body is built for either. It has to have that balance.
And do you sense a certain type of anxiety in these high achievers and people that are kind of working towards, they've got these career goals, but then they're also tying in other goals as well? Is there like an anxiety wrapped around that?
So this personality type is typical for mid-40s, senior executives, usually male, but they come to me for panic attacks because they're feeling that unless I don't achieve this, nothing's meaningful, And so they're just holding themselves to this really stringent parameter, and they're feeling very squeezed by that. It's almost the shadow side of perfectionism. We're ambitious, and that ambition takes us to the next rung and the next rung. But it's that same ambition that makes us feel, I'm not good enough until I get to the top of the ladder, right? So we just keep climbing and climbing. And then what I see is that they get to the top of the ladder, they look around, they say, this is not where I wanted to go. I'm not happy. I'm not peaceful. I'm just so wound up. So, when they're feeling, that anxiety comes when you have crazy high expectations. Those people who come to the gym is like, okay, in 1 week, I want to lose 20 kilos. Like, so those ridiculous expectations for themselves and for others, that insatiable drive. So they're unable to even rest and see the merit in pausing. Also, imposter syndrome, where deep down they're running so far and they're trying to achieve so much because right now they don't feel good enough. There is a feeling of less than, and so that's when we start to really break down in terms of the mindset and that gratitude, the pausing. And that's actually when I've seen an incredible power in breath work and being able to really bridge the body and the mind through the vehicle of the breath.
Well, tell us more about the breath work and anything that you found has been super helpful.
Yeah, so I think the breath work is something I love to teach. I teach the happiness course, and it's a 3-day intensive breath work. I teach the happiness course, and it's a 3-day intense breathing exercise where you really start to learn a technique that you can do anywhere. It only takes 20 minutes. But the reason why it's so beneficial is because when you're noticing your breath, as you inhale and as you exhale, you have to stay in the domain of the here and now. You cannot be tomorrow and you cannot be yesterday. And generally, that's the two domains that the mind occupies, right? We're always running for, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that. That's still pending. I have to follow up with him. Or in the past, oh, why did I do that? I missed that. I can't believe I didn't say that on time. All of these two domains actually strip us of our power, because me being effective means me being here and now and choosing my behaviors and my actions in the present moment. Even when we think about the emotional frequency of the future, generally when you think of the future, it's associated to fear because the future is unknown. And we want to stay in control, right? But we don't know what's coming tomorrow. So there's this angst of, I have to over prepare. I have to make sure I cover all parameters. But I'm in an unknown territory. And same with the past. What's gone is gone. So I can't go back and undo it. And generally when I'm thinking about the past, it's of regret. So both those spheres emotionally are dragging our energy. When we're in the present, that's when that calm is. That's when the happiness is. That's when we're able to be in that flow state. And so even, simple awareness of, when I'm breathing, there's this feeling of expansion. And when I'm breathing out, there's this feeling of relaxation. And just noticing how the body balloons and releases with each breath, again, connects the mind and the body. And the closer, the more connected those two are, the more centered, the more calm we feel. My teacher would always say, stress is the gap between your body and your mind. Your mind is racing in some other domain. Your body is sedentary, still, and lethargic. The bigger that gap is, the more stress is playing on your system. So when we're able to kind of bridge that gap by bridging the body and the mind through the breath, that's really when we can start to optimize our energy.
And what an easy way to start getting into that parasympathetic state that isn't having to go, whether there's research behind it, you don't have to go and buy an ice bath. You don't have to travel somewhere to do a meditation class. Or you can literally do that when you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed, when you're sat in your desk chair at your office.
Absolutely.
There's so much power in that one activity that's going to ground you and bring you back to the present moment.
For sure. Absolutely. What I love about breathwork is that, hey, we're breathing anyway. We might as well figure out how to do it correctly, right? You don't have to go and roll out a mat. You don't have to go put your trainers on. It's accessible anywhere. So that's really what I teach in terms of employee well-being. If we're seated at our desk and we've got this maybe jarring email, Before reacting, take a few breaths. Find your center, and then you're so much more ready to respond rather than react. You know, if we're associating an environment with stress, that same environment can also bring us peace if we just change the intention, right? If we just focus instead of firefighting to coming back to our breath. So something as simple as belly breathing, you know, just noticing as you inhale, the belly expands, and as you exhale, the belly contracts. What happens is when we are born, if you imagine a baby lying down, you can see its belly rise as it sleeps, right? Rising and falling. So we've been programmed with this very beautiful biological technique to relax. What happens now when we're stressed and we're dealing with panic attacks is that the stress has overridden the relaxation response. And so people are hyperventilating. They're breathing up into their chest. And it's the short, sharp breaths. It's like trying to fill a gallon of water with an espresso cup versus a mug, right? The greater your capacity of each breath, the more easy it is to fill. The smaller each breath is, the more you're having to breathe, and the more tiring it is for the whole body. So going back to diaphragmatic breathing, going back to really those slower, longer, deeper breaths. I like to even count as you inhale, a count of 4, and as you exhale, a count of 8. So what you're doing is you're lengthening the breath out, and that helps to ignite that parasympathetic nervous system.
What's amazing about that as well is one of our coaches, Coach Asha, who's amazing, dealing with people with chronic pain and injuries, and she really looks deep into how you move and all of that stuff. The first thing she starts with when you come into the gym is she'll get you to lie on a mat and watch you breathe.
Yeah.
That's the first thing she does.
It's amazing.
And then she'll take you through some coaching on breathing, which will eventually lead on to, you know, how to brace.
Yes.
But she's looking at how you're breathing and using that as the starting point, which just goes to show, like what you've said there, how important that is. Not just in a lifestyle perspective and grounding yourself, but also in exercise as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much connected to even core strength and posture, right? If I'm seated like this, I don't have the access to my belly to breathe into. So I'm breathing up here because the weight of my shoulders, the weight of the stress has hunched me over, causing that posture to collapse. So even working and seeing how the body is a vehicle for our energy, when we're able to open and strengthen, our capacity is so much deeper too. And I've seen, you know, I'll coach clients just 10 simple Ujjayi breaths, which is a deeper mindfulness practice in itself, as they're lying down in bed, head on pillow. And after 10 breaths, the depth of their sleep, the feeling of restoration is so much more powerful. And those, you know, who have those to-do lists and who have, you know, that mind racing so much, automatically when you're breathing before you sleep, the mind has to slow down and has to come back to the slow rhythm of the breath. And that is what helps people fall asleep quickly.
Yeah, amazing. One of the things that, moving on from that, with people who haven't exercised for a long time, who are maybe in their 20s, they're exercising a lot, they're in good routines, you know, before they get married, that type of stuff. Then, you know, career starts to advance, family, kids. The first thing that we tend to see that gets thrown out is exercise, because there's more priorities, and also not just other things prioritized, but also less sleep, you know, all of these other stressful things that go on in your life. The last thing you want to do is exercise. But there's definitely a time where you can see people trying to claw it back and get back into those. They know that it's going to make them feel good. Maybe they've put on some weight and they're not feeling comfortable in their own skin. They want to get back into that routine that they had before, but they feel a bit apprehensive. Maybe the training environment has changed. You know, fitness is always changing.
Absolutely.
What was popular maybe 10 years ago isn't necessarily something that's popular now. So navigating their way back into some sort of training is always tough. And that's what we're trying to do as a gym, as a brand, is we're trying to say, listen, wherever you're at right now, there's a space for you here, and you're not capped where you can get to. Like, you can make huge improvements, but we want you to know that there's a safe environment that you can come in, and we're going to help you to build up.
That's amazing. In terms of that shift in priority, you know, if there was a message for you to be able to share, how do you ensure that, you know, our health doesn't slip down when other priorities are competing? Like, how do you ensure that as we're getting busier, we still hold sacred this time for ourselves to work out and to really replenish our body?
So a lot of it has got to come from internally.
Yes.
Like, you've got to have that respect for yourself, self-care, but also, as I've just mentioned, then when things take priority and you've got less sleep, you're not necessarily thinking of those things right there. So that's probably where your partner or your spouse or someone around you could be that little flick of a switch that can just say, hey, you know, I need to do the same as well. Can we prioritize? If you're gonna, you know, look after the kids this night, allows me to go to the gym, or maybe you're going to train early in the morning, I'll train later in the evening, and maybe setting some boundaries around that to make sure you get it done. Listen, I'm a fitness trainer and I'm telling you to exercise. It's not rocket science. People know that exercise is going to help them to feel better and probably push them towards some goals that they're working towards. But we also understand that there's so much more going on in life.
Definitely.
And that's where it goes back to setting those realistic expectations. And, you know, you might want to get a six pack, or, you know, squat really heavy, or, you know, look great at the beach. But maybe we just need to get you to a point where you're exercising 2 or 3 times a week. You're getting your steps in outside, you know, you're eating nutritious meals. And then once you've kind of cemented those habits and you're feeling good, then we start to layer on those things on top. Rather than going for that all-in approach where we go, right, this is what I want. I'm going to go on a 12-week shred where I'm going to get into the best shape ever. It's not realistic. And unfortunately, you know, fitness industry is a business as well. Like, people are marketing these things, not because they're trying to con you. Like, there is opportunities and there is certain cases where people can get into amazing shape, and we see these before and afters, and that's great. But also, it is a business as well, and they are going to sell you on things that you want to hear as well. So I think just being mindful about that, like, where are you right now? Where is a realistic goal that you can get to, and talk to people. Like, people like myself and other fitness professionals are more than happy to have those conversations without trying to sell you onto a plan.
Absolutely. And it's exactly that, right? Like, seeing that life is a balancing act. You know, even when we talk at Inspire Wellness around the pillars, there are 6 pillars to manage. And that none of them include like work and family responsibilities, like sleep, your mindful habits, stress management, social connection, your nutrition. So, you know, bringing all of that together does take intention, but I've seen personally, it's also, you know, when we have competing priorities, the easiest thing to do is to overlay that and create an umbrella. So now it's like, oh yeah, I really want to hang out with you. Let's grab a coffee and go for a walk. So I'm ticking off movement and I'm ticking off social connection, right? Or my daughter, she's 12, and now it's starting to like add on some academic pressure with exams and things. So I'll say, let's do a workout together, you know? And so, yes, I'm also strengthening, you're also strengthening. And let's see, after the 25, 30 minutes, how are we both feeling? Oh yeah, I'm so much more relaxed. I'm not so pent up. I'm also able to kind of create a switch in terms of work is done. Now I'm ready to bond with the family, you know? And so I think the way in which we can even frame that becomes so nice when we're modeling that for the family. We're modeling for our friends. And that way we're also creating these accountability partners in so many aspects of our life, right?
I think on the whole, although there is obviously rising obesity levels and, junk food, unhealthy habits, that type of stuff, I definitely feel like there is an aspect of people are getting fitter, people are getting stronger, especially like in competitive environments. And that's one of the things I have noticed a lot over the last few years, like how much training people are actually doing, where it's getting to a point where like people are posting marathons as like a training run. People are posting like super fast 5Ks and making out as if it was just a recovery run. And people are, traveling the world and doing these competitions. And that level is getting just pushed up and up and up. And as someone who was competitive in fitness and has done some kind of crazy challenges in the past as well, seeing that now, and it gets to me as well, like thinking sometimes, because I've spent the last, 7.5 years building my business, and my fitness has kind of gone to the side a little bit because I've prioritized trying to grow my business. I've prioritized taking on clients, which might mean I don't get to train. And maybe I'm not where I want to be aesthetically right now, but that's one of the things that, and I went through a period of time where I deleted social media because I was constantly comparing myself to someone who, they're doing all this training and maybe they're similar to me. They're a coach who has a business and I'm seeing them do this crazy amount of training. And then, that can get to you sometimes.
Yeah, it's made for comparison too, right? And people are posting only the best highlight reel of their life. And so if we're comparing the best moments to your average day, when we're on social media, it actually it has enhanced social anxiety. It has enhanced depression rates, but it's also coming to a place where you can feel comfortable in yourself, right? And say, yeah, I'm okay with this prioritization. This is what is meaningful for me. And also, I think when we take a step back and we take a longer term view, yeah, okay, I won't go crazy on the workouts because I'm building something. And that requires my energy, that requires my captive attention. So also understanding that, everyone is on their own journey in that way, and how we can create that sense of support to make sure that, we're seeing self-care as supportive, right? Because I'll get a lot of people come to me and say, I'm not going to meditate for an hour a day. Like, how am I going to fit all this extra stuff, right? I'm already so busy. But starting with those small habits, the micro learnings, but really creating that sustainability in our lifestyle so that we start navigating these changes and it feels automatic. Like if you didn't work out for a week, it would feel abnormal to you, right? Like for me too, if I don't do my practices, if I don't do my breath work, if I don't exercise, something's a bit off, right? And so in order to maintain that frequency that we're at, to maintain that energy, this becomes the foundation. So, when people talk about self-care, they'll frame it in a sense that, oh, I'm really selfish because I'm taking time away from the family to go do my exercise or to go make my fresh juice or whatever it is. Like, but when you're able to look after yourself, what then is your capacity to look after others, right? When we're depleted, how can we lead? How can we nurture? But when we're filling ourselves and filling our cups first, then, we're ready to serve others. So really, it's how we frame it as well.
I find that there's a blurred line of exactly what you just said there about, taking time for yourself to go and exercise, to make your smoothie, to look after yourself, self-care. And then what I'm seeing, or what I've seen a lot over the years as well, is that people who maybe take it past that level, and great that they've got into an exercise routine and found something that they love that's helping them to stay fit and healthy for their family, for themselves. It's helping them, achieve things at work and everything's getting there. But then they just push it up a notch again and it starts taking a little bit more time. That time has to come from somewhere. And then you start to see it become a little bit more of their identity, which again isn't necessarily a problem. But you almost see that fitness and identity as someone who is, triathlete or a hardcore fitness trainer, and they're not an alcoholic going to the pub every day. They're not a druggie. They're not anything like that. But they're still spending their time in that realm. It's almost, they're doing something so amazing, but at the same time, you don't want to get too far that it starts becoming an issue.
So what would you say would be like some signals or telltale signs if people are using exercise as escapism?
I think just having the conversations with the people around you to start with, and make sure that it's not taken away from anywhere, even if you think it's not. Like if you're achieving everything at work that you need to, you're a family man or family woman, and everything seems like it's going in the right direction, just make sure that you're having those conversations you are ticking the boxes. I don't know, it's hard not to, I don't want to offend anybody, because I also think that it's so good to see people pushing their boundaries. I think it's just having honest conversations with those around you to make sure that everything is in line. Yeah,
I think it's also an honest conversation with yourself, It's also, I think so many of our conversations, the thematic of it has been intention, right? So what is the purpose? What is the intention of me getting that six-pack, or of me completing this triathlon, right? So what is my purpose? Is it so that I feel better, or is it a social flex, or, is it really bringing me a joy that's irreplaceable in any other domain? So I think, even starting where people feel comfortable where they are with themselves, right? And then that becomes your fuel, and that becomes your passion. Like, I'm comfortable with myself. And because of that comfort, I want to see where I can go. I want to see how much I can grow. When we're uncomfortable with ourselves, then it becomes a toxic fuel, right? I want to push, because I want to show the other person I can do it better than they can, right? And so also going back into the mindset of, are my fuel sources positive and life affirming in that way?
Just bringing it back to, you touched on breathing a little bit, but I know some of the other stuff you do for you personally and maybe teach as well is a little bit around meditation and yoga as well. How does that kind of play out in your life?
So, I mean, for me, it's just, I will do a 20-minute meditation, and even, obviously we're all human. Even if I haven't clocked in perfect 8 hours of sleep, for me, it gives me a chance to refuel. So it allows me that deep rest, that deep connection. Also allows me to notice what's in my mind. Sometimes people are very confronted by their own thoughts. That's why it's so easy. The moment there's an awkward situation, I'll get my phone, I'll disassociate from the situation, right? So to really find a sense of comfort and a peace from within, so that when I'm with others, that's what I'm bringing to the table. I'm allowing them to be at peace with who they are, because that's what I'm reflecting, And so for me, it's been a real anchor. It's really helped me, especially from, my A-type personality, from banking, from that go, that imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, to come and say, I'm so grateful. I can choose to feel calm right now. It's my thoughts that are whirling, but I can choose to be on that train or not. And so I think it's really helped to give me clarity, even when I'm talking to leadership. That clarity in decision making comes from this space, when they can cut through the noise and really see what is the heart of the matter. Yoga for me, actually, to be honest, is where I just invigorate my body. It's almost like a 15-minute practice where I get the juices flowing, I feel my energy, I release any tension or stiffness that, I might not even know. Sometimes we don't know we have a head until we have a headache, right? And so just checking in with the body, and that has been a beautiful kind of journey for me, because I started with yoga, understanding the body, and then I was like, what's behind that? And then it was, the stress. So then understanding how the breath and emotions connect. When we're happy, the breath is so light. When we're sad, the breath is heavy. When we're angry, it's sharp, it's fast, right? So noticing that our emotional state is affecting our breathing rhythms. So if we can change our breath work to instill a positive, peaceful environment, then our mood will follow there. And then what's behind the energy is the mind, and reconnecting to those human values, reconnecting to a feeling of peace, a feeling of connection, of love, of service. And so I think it's been a beautiful kind of journey holistically, but one where I feel like has become more and more relevant in today's frenetic lifestyles. That moment to pause when there's so many reasons and so many avenues that I can distract myself instead, or I can desensitize instead. So rather than numbing, really connecting and realizing that so much of what we're looking for in terms of the outside can be engineered within, right? The joy isn't in the chocolate cake. It's something in us that's awakened by the chocolate cake, right? But it can be awakened in so many different ways when we're comfortable with ourselves.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really excited about that's happening and has been happening over the last 2 or 3 years is this gravitation to more people doing strength training.
Yes.
And I love, because it's something that we've always done, like personally and obviously as a coach as well, we've always been promoting that. But having people talking about that on podcasts, people being more aware about how important building muscle is. I love the changing narrative of workouts not just being about going in and doing a boot camp and finishing on the ground in a pool of your own sweat.
Yes.
People are coming in and following systems and following programs to make sure that they're getting better. Things like tracking weights to make sure they're lifting more, because that's how you're going to get stronger. One of the main things we see when we get people first come down to us who maybe haven't been exposed to strength training just yet is that they don't rest.
Yeah.
So we'll set the workout on the board and it'll be maybe 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10. We need you to have 90 seconds rest in between. And maybe some of our more experienced members will have that rest and they'll enjoy the rest. They'll have a chat in between, like they enjoy that. And then the new people, you can see they're almost agitated.
Yeah,
they're like,
let's go.
Yeah, I need to lift more.
Yeah.
And maybe they haven't exposed themselves to the heavier weights yet. So naturally they'll feel like they've got the energy. But just to changing that dynamic. And again, that just adds to that whole thing of, managing your body around how your energy levels are for the day and just being more systematic about it. So that's great to see.
Also the importance of like the recovery and the push, right? The parasympathetic and the sympathetic, how it's in tandem. How have you seen strength training change character? Have you seen any character traits or a change in people's mindset once they start strength training?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely some changes. More confidence for one. People are more confident.
Definitely.
I think that comes from obviously getting stronger and maybe noticing that they can do things outside of the gym that they couldn't before, whether that's playing with the kids, picking things up. So that's one thing. But also, I think confidence in, I told you this before, we get people coming in for the first time. And if you're someone who is maybe the beginner to start with, and now you're demonstrating and showing someone how to do a squat with the barbell, and you're lifting kettlebells and barbells and all of those things that you couldn't do before, like that's definitely something that's going to make you more confident and probably just feel more capable in life.
Yeah.
Some of the conversations I have with the mums in the group, they'll talk about, my 16-year-old son was asking how much I can bench press. And I'm like, that's such a great conversation to have. Or, they're able to do a pull-up now that they weren't before. Like, how amazing is that you never thought you were going to be able to pull your body weight up over a bar, and now you can. So definitely that adds confidence.
Absolutely. And so, it's something we're conditioning the body, but it's really adding so much value to the quality of our life. When we're confident, we're also more able to lean into new situations, right? Where generally we would shy away from or fear. We're feeling a sense of even a growth mindset that I don't have to feel that I've got everything. I know I can work towards it, right? I know that even just the feeling of going rock climbing with the kids, if there's that strength, you can enjoy all these different things, even in nature, where before it'd be like, oh no, I'm in my 40s, I'm too heavy, I can't, I'm scared. What if I fall, right? Yeah. To be able to say, I got this, I'm strong, let's go.
And just something as little as having conversations with people. We'll do like a in-body analysis where it will give us some measurements on weight and muscle mass and fat mass and stuff. And to have women in particular asking me about how much muscle do I need, and they're focusing on the muscle rather than the weight or the fat. Sometimes they're like, that says that I'm below on my muscle, how do I build that? Fantastic. And obviously we build that through fueling properly and through doing resistance training. So that's great to see.
It's so great also that it's not like your state of mind isn't dictated by this number on a scale, right? You're also starting to really hone in on the metabolic aspect of strength training and what that does in terms of fueling your whole body and insulin resistance. Like,
being
there's
more efficient.
So much, there's so much medical science that really supports musculature in that way.
Definitely. Right, is there anything else you want to squeeze in there?
Maybe the one question about nature, and then I think we're clear.
Yes, perfect. What shall I say?
Anything you want me to talk about?
No, I think I'm covered there. Let me just check.
Just say like, oh, you recently moved to Dubai. What do you miss about? Is there anything you're having? Is there anything? How has the move been, or something? And then I can.
No, nothing yet. I think maybe some stuff in future that we can do, but no, I think I've covered quite a lot there.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
So I'll just ask about nature.
Yeah. You just be like, how would we weave it in?
This is why we didn't do this, because we would have been pursuing the whole thing.
Maybe you could just say, how
does nature play a role in your work?
Yeah. How does nature play? Like, is there a correlation between nature and well-being, or something of the sort, or how it plays in your work?
Okay. So, how does nature play into the work that you do with professionals?
That's a great question. When we moved to Dubai, that was something that I was a little apprehensive about, coming into a big city. Previously in Hong Kong and in London, actually, there's a lot of green space, and in 20 minutes, I could be on a hiking trail. I could be in the mountains, and that was almost my space of rejuvenation, of recharge, and so it's a beautiful energy when you're in nature, because nature knows no comparison. The sunflower isn't saying, oh, look at me, I'm so tall and all my, petals are blooming. What are you doing over there, green leaf? Right? Everything has its space, everything is blossoming, and there's no space for ego or that identification. So whenever I would go into the greenery, into nature, I would really be able to steep in that feeling of awe. Like, wow, it's incredible. Look at the waves. Look at the clouds. Look at the greenery. And so that's one of the reasons why retreats and those immersive experiences mean so much to me. And I've really started to enjoy, the rock formations in Fujairah, or watching the desert sand here in the UAE. There's something that puts you in the back seat, and you see nature is so grand. There's so much at play. There's a much higher intelligence. And it helps to put our problems in perspective. You know, I don't really need to be worrying about this one email. I can just take a pause and enjoy this energy and enjoy this experience. So when we have taken executives into nature, allowing them to really reconnect with the nature of themselves, the nature of that stillness within becomes so much easier because you're not in that place of competition or comparison. You're in that place where you can pause, you can surrender, and you can appreciate. So I think having moments where you can instill that feeling of nature and immerse yourself in that is so beautiful, whether it's for relationships, whether it's for mental health, emotional health. It really adds to that physical vitality too.
Amazing.